This is the new Kia EV5 and it doesn't make a great deal of sense to me. Let me explain. This is basically an electric alternative to the Kia Sportage. So it's a mid-size SUV, family-friendly package. But if you take a closer look at it, so I've done a bit of a cost analysis here, there's just things that don't make sense. I'm going to compare the Kia Sportage SX hybrid because that's basically the entry-level hybrid. This is the entry-level EV5 called the Air Long Range. You can actually get a short-range version as well. But if I use those specs to compare, it makes it look even worse. So the price is $61,170 for this spec EV5 versus $45,950 for the SX Hybrid Sportage, both excluding on-road costs. So that's over $15,000 difference. Then you think, okay, well, what else are you getting? Well, you're not getting anything in terms of equipment and features except for extra charging, so you can plug your laptop into the back of this, and a few minor a few minor luxuries inside, but nothing major. Moving on to the weight, this spec is around 300 kilograms heavier than that SX Hybrid Sportage. 300 kilograms is a lot. That's going to mean heavier wear and tear on most of the components, including the brakes and the tires. But it also affects things like braking performance, longevity, and other things. I might just get out of the sun. It's going to be a very hot day today. I tried to do the filming this morning, but the sun is still quite low, so it's right in my eyes. I might jump in the car. Yeah, look at that, it's 27 degrees already. What about efficiency? Well, this is where it gets quite interesting, actually. So the official range in this is 555 kilometers. The official range in the Sportage Hybrid is 1,061 kilometers. That's using the official average consumption rate of 4.9 litres per 100 kilometers with a full tank of petrol. Now you could argue, oh, you're not going to get 4.9 in the real world. Well, you don't get 555 kilometers in this in the real world either. So that's why I'm just using the official facts and figures so we can remain as consistent as possible. This uses an 88.1 kilowatt hour battery. Now, if you don't know what kilowatt hours means, you might as well say it's liters, basically. Think about it as the fuel tank size, 88.1 liters, kind of, which takes a certain amount of time to charge up. But mainly it provides that range, 555 kilometers. Yesterday, I filled this up using a ChargeFox station. It cost me 65 cents per kilowatt hour. So if I had a completely empty battery, that would cost me $57.25 to fully charge the battery. Now, to fuel the tank in the Sportage Hybrid, it will cost you, average price today of around $1.72 per litre. It will cost you $89.42 to fill the tank. So basically $89.42 will get you 1,061 kilometers, theoretically. If you wanted to do that sort of distance in this, using a public station, it will cost you $114.15. So it's actually more expensive to fill this and cover 1,000 kilometers than it is to fill the Sportage Hybrid and cover 1,000 kilometers. And that's where I think EVs really fall down at the moment. The range, 555 kilometers might seem like a lot, but you don't get that in the real world. And compared with that Sportage Hybrid, you're going to be filling this twice as often because you get 1,000 out of the Sportage Hybrid and only 555 in this. I've always said that I'll never buy an EV until the range is over 1,000 kilometers, which may never happen, but if that's the case, guess what? I'm never buying an EV because of the practicality side. If you live a busy lifestyle or spontaneous lifestyle, you run down the coast or something like that, spontaneously, then EVs, they become very frustrating because you've got to charge it up and you've got to make sure you've charged it at the right times to get the best cost and all of that. Whereas a petrol vehicle, you can just, you can check fuel prices or whatever, but it's not a huge difference. And you just charge it whenever you want and you can charge it in 5 minutes or fill it up in 5 minutes or less. And that's where I think this really sort of falls down. You're paying $15,000 more, it's heavier, it's costs more to fill up and run basically. And yet it's the same package inside. It's not quite as nice to drive. We'll go for a drive now and I'll show you what I mean. Look, this is still a lovely vehicle. I think Kia always do a great job with local testing and tuning, so it does drive nicely as an EV, and it's a nice EV package in terms of practicality. It's big and spacious and whatnot. But it just doesn't make sense compared with the Sportage. This should be, in my opinion, $5,000 or $10,000 less than the Sportage Hybrid. It has fewer moving parts. There's just a big battery and an electric motor, just like a child's toy. Like, there's nothing complicated here. It's just they haven't figured out the technology yet to bring battery costs down. But right now, then, you know, should the customer have to pay for that right now, you know, while they're still developing? I don't know. I don't think so. If this was cheaper, then sure, definitely makes more sense. But so far, this is more expensive and more expensive to run in the real world. Again, if you've got solar power, great. And you can charge it during the day, which I think is a very unusual scenario. Most people go to work during the day. I mean, a lot of us work from home, so yeah. I mean, it can make sense. You've just got to think about these things and really weigh up the costs and everything. Whereas I feel like with that Sportage Hybrid, you don't have to weigh up anything. It's very good value. You're getting an awesome range. It doesn't cost that much to run and maintain. I don't know. As I said at the start, it just doesn't quite make sense to me at the moment. I think much of this will change. The battery prices will come down and all of that. It's typically futuristic in here. I'm not a fan of this steering wheel. It's very bulky and chunky. And it's got this plastic trim that goes around. It just doesn't look or feel nice, even compared with the Sportage steering wheel. But it does look futuristic and kind of different. It's got this kind of strange seat in the middle, but you can't actually sit there. There's no seat belt with a flip down armrest. And then it's got this pocket in the front there, but I'd kind of rather that just be out of the way, and then I can use the shelf there, because things slide down the back. You can't quite reach them. And you do have a lower level shelf as well, which you don't get with the Sportage. And then yeah, dual screen across the dash, nice big screen, good graphics, good menu flow and functionality. And you've got some of the main climate controls down here, which is great to see, separated out of the screen so you can adjust the fan speed and whatnot. But the climate control panel is just here, and that remains there all the time. So it is good that Kia is doing that and not making you dive into the screen. That's always accessible. You can turn the aircon on or off just there. And then the main multimedia section is over this side. And then passenger space is very similar to the Sportage. This might be a little bit bigger inside, or at least there's a perception where it feels a little bit bigger, probably due to the center console as well, the way that it's just lowered down like that. It just gives you the feeling that there's more space in here. And then in the back, one of the advantages of EVs is you can have a completely flat floor because there's no tail shaft running through, so you don't have that big chunky hump in the middle, which means the middle passenger is almost as comfortable as the outer passengers. And then just like the Sportage, similar level of comfort and room. My head's nowhere near the ceiling and I've got plenty of leg room. You've actually got a little USB-C port in the back of the seat there, which is nice. Climate controls on the pillar, so you do have air coming through, and a flip down armrest with cup holders. And up at the back, a manual tailgate for this one, with lots of little knickknacks and goodies in the back here, little shelves and so on. These movable hooks as well on both sides, some more shelving, little pockets down the sides. And then this power socket, 250 volt, 16 amp Australian outlet plug. Underneath we've got some extra storage for the charging cables, including in the front as well. That's nice that it's plastic lined, so you can chuck some beach gear in there, some wet items or whatever, and it's not gonna make the carpet all damp. And you do have a little pocket under the bonnet as well. Perfect for the charging cables. Now it is good that Kia has fit, I'll just pull over for a second, has fit an actual start button just on the steering column here where the gear shifter is. And it just means that if you pop into the shops or something and you've got your wife and kids in the vehicle, you can just put it into park and the vehicle remains on. So all the air conditioning and everything just remains on. I know a lot of EVs, you can pre-program the air conditioning and have the air conditioning remain on and all that sort of thing. But sometimes you just want to get out of the vehicle quickly and grab something and run back out. And with this, yeah, you don't have to worry about it automatically turning off or having to go in and saying, no, I want the air conditioning to stay on. This is just like a conventional petrol vehicle. Another benefit though is that you don't have to reset all of these safety systems. So this does come with all of the latest gear, all the latest annoying gear as well. And yeah, having the ability to leave the vehicle running means that they don't all reset. One of the most annoying systems is the driver monitoring camera, like in a lot of vehicles these days, not just the Kia EV5. I put duct tape over it most of the time, and you'll get a message come up saying, you know, face not clear or something like that, and it'll just pop up maybe once or twice on a drive, and then that's it. But if you want to turn it off, you can pre-program this star button on the steering wheel, which has been done on this vehicle, and it pops up the driver safety systems. So you can turn the speed limit assist off, which I do every time I drive it, because it gets it wrong. Like just then, for example, it said the speed limit was 100 kilometers an hour. This is clearly not a 100 kilometer an hour speed zone. For some reason it's got that, but it can work the other way too, which is obviously the annoying part. It'll say 5 kilometers an hour or 10 kilometers an hour when you pull out of a car park and you're on the main road, and it keeps flashing at you saying you need to go 10, you need to go 10. Well, no, it's 60 or 80 or whatever the speed limit is. So you end up turning that off every time. And then also the driver monitoring camera you can turn off. But if you turn that off, which I found the other day driving down for a big trip with the kids, if you yawn or scratch your head in a way that blocks the vision for a second or two, the systems will come back on, which is annoying. Like, you've turned them off, why does it have to come back on? I don't know where that is in the regulations. I know ANCAP requires 2 presses of something to turn some of this stuff off. That's why there's so many different presses and menus and all that sort of stuff. You can turn the lane keep assist off by holding down this button, and you get a little orange light for the lane keep assist there. But again, if you yawn, it'll turn back on, which is just ridiculous. Like, it's a normal bodily function. You're not allowed to yawn in the vehicle. Like, I don't know, I think this is all over the top, and as I said, it's so annoying that you just end up turning it off, so then you're not getting any benefit, or whatever benefit there is, from it in the first place. But what I was getting at is, it's great to have that start button so that stuff doesn't all turn back off, and then you go, turn back on, and you got to turn it all back on again when you get back in the vehicle. The electric motor in this produces a maximum of 160 kilowatts, which again, compared with the Sportage Hybrid, it produces 169 kilowatts. So you're getting more power, 300 kilograms lighter, means better power to weight ratio in the Sportage. I know it seems like I'm just ranting and picking on the EV5, but I'm just really struggling to see where this comes out in front. Like, why would you, what are the reasons you'd buy this over the Sportage Hybrid? I can't see many so far. To be honest, if I was going to buy an EV5, I'd probably get the top spec model with the 230 kilowatts, because especially from a driving enthusiast point of view, the acceleration of EVs is the most attractive feature pretty much. You know, you just cannot get the response and acceleration out of a petrol vehicle compared with an EV. You just can't. So yeah, I would kind of steer towards more the top spec model, but then you're paying a higher price again. But at least you are getting the performance. So yeah, I don't know. I think for me, if I was going to buy an EV5, I would get the top spec model and at least enjoy some of that acceleration. This example does go okay though. Like, the throttle response is instant. You've got a few different driving modes. I've got it in Eco at the moment. It's got this little hidden button on the steering wheel. You've got normal, sport, and snow, and eco. In sport mode, yeah, it definitely becomes more responsive. So going uphill now, full throttle, it picks up nicely. Like, you've got instant power and all that torque straight away as soon as you push the pedal. As I said though, the power to weight ratio in this is not that impressive. I haven't done the performance testing yet, but I'm not expecting incredible times out of this example at least, but we'll see how we go. Out on the highway, I took the family down to Canberra for the weekend, so it's about 200 kilometers on the highway, and the range and everything didn't come up that well. Now, electric vehicles, they use more energy, or not more energy, but they're not the most efficient on the highway, because at 100, 110 or 120 or whatever, you've got to spin that motor even faster, because there's no gearbox obviously, and that's where they're not very efficient. So I left my house with a range on the trip computer here saying 526 kilometers, and when I got there, the range didn't add up. So what I had left over didn't add up for the amount of kilometers I did. We've arrived, so I left with a range of about 526, and we've done 222 kilometers. So add those two figures together and you get about 430 kilometers. So basically we've just lost 100 kilometers in range for some reason. I've been driving in eco mode for most of the time as well. And that is worth keeping in mind. So if you are planning to buy an EV5, and you're going to be doing a lot of trips and little road trips and whatnot, then I think again the Sportage comes out better, because you don't have to worry about that range dropping down faster than what the trip computer says. It will do that in the Sportage as well, but at least you've got 1,000 kilometers to play with, not just 550. In terms of the handling, yeah, it does feel good. It's got nice suspension. It just feels a little bit heavy, and I think the tires are not the best in terms of outright handling anyway. But yeah, the weight is the biggest thing. I can feel that this weighs 2,000 kilograms, whereas the Sportage is actually quite a nice handling SUV for a standard mainstream vehicle anyway. This does feel just a little bit sloppy, a little bit kind of, yeah, like, look at that. You probably can't see that on camera, but it's really flopping about, whereas the Sportage doesn't do that. It feels nice and flat and neutral and light. It feels light behind the wheel, whereas this feels very heavy and almost cumbersome. Like if I was to push it down a nice twisty road, this would definitely feel less comfortable than the standard Sportage, or any rival for that matter. But in terms of the good sides, look, this is very comfortable, smooth and relaxing. It's quiet, obviously. It cuts through the air nicely. I think the exterior design is pretty futuristic and out there, so that's good if you want that. You want to stand out as something different, then the EV5 is a good option. And you are getting excellent practicality in terms of all the features and gizmos. Good storage everywhere, and yeah, it's just a nice mid-size SUV. But overall, as I said, I'm struggling to see where this comes out better, or why you'd buy this over a Sportage hybrid. I can't see it, I really can't. Anyway, let's go out now to do the performance test and see what it goes like.